Hello and welcome. My name's Hollywood Joe Tussing, and tonight we are watching UFC Fight Night Poirier versus Alvarez Part 2. So we get a great main event and a beautiful finish by Dustin the Diamond, able to get the TKO stoppage in the last minute of the second round. The first round started with Eddie Alvarez coming out and immediately throwing a low calf kick, looking like he wanted to take a page out of Justin Gaethje's book, do a little bit of damage to the already somewhat injured, repairing front leg of Dustin Poirier. But he just really wasn't able to find a home with many of the kicks. Poirier tried to use the low kick as well. Neither man super effective with it. But Poirier was very effective with his boxing. His jab was very crisp and accurate. His straight left on point, catching Eddie Alvarez a couple times, making him stumble, staggered him just a bit, and started to get Eddie Alvarez to telegraph his takedowns, not setting him up. Eddie Alvarez threw a couple double hooks to the body, which worked out very well. If he would have gone to that more, I think he would have been more effective in the first round. But I had to give the first round to Dustin Poirier, just more accurate with his punches, was able to stop the takedowns, and on their faces you could see that Eddie Alvarez had taken more damage. Poirier was able to open up a small cut under the left eye of Eddie Alvarez. So in the second round, both guys come out and Eddie Alvarez immediately goes back to a low kick. The moment that they stepped to the center of the octagon, it looked like he had practiced that the entire camp. Every time he came to the center to spar, he would throw a low kick. But he didn't really go back to many of the kicks. Poirier was very crisp with his boxing still. Eddie Alvarez went for a takedown, and Dustin Poirier immediately jumped for a guillotine. Poirier looked very good on his back. He didn't look rushed or scared of being on his back. So when Eddie Alvarez, after getting his fingers out of the cage, was able to get his head out of the guillotine, Dustin Poirier just pushed his way back up onto his feet and separated away from Eddie Alvarez. Once they separated, Alvarez started trying to pressure a little bit more than he had in the first round, threw another double body hook that landed, and Poirier was just using his jab to keep distance. Poirier threw a high kick that went over Eddie Alvarez's shoulder. Alvarez pushed him back to the cage. They fell. Alvarez looked like he was going to grab for a guillotine, but he didn't really have anything. So as they separated, Alvarez telegraphed another shot and just dove right in, and Poirier jumped in for another guillotine, ending up on his back, and this one wasn't even as close as the first guillotine he has thrown. And the way they ended up on the cage was Eddie Alvarez somewhat kneeling in mount with Dustin Poirier against the cage, and he was holding around the back of Dustin Poirier's head with his middle finger inside of Dustin Poirier's ear. I've never seen anybody do like a fish hook into somebody's ear. Very new technique to me. That's a dirty little technique to hold on to somebody's head. But Goddard told him to get his finger out of there. He moved his hand and immediately went back to it. Once they were able to get his finger out of his ear, for some reason, Eddie Alvarez decided to throw a 12-6 elbow. He didn't go to the head. He went to the trap right above the shoulder, landed. It looked like it wouldn't be fun to take one of those, but no matter where it's at, no matter where it's aimed, you can't throw a 12-6 elbow. So the ref stood them up, and they went back to the center of the octagon. So once the referee separated them, stood them back up, told Eddie Alvarez no 12-6 elbows. They come back to the center of the octagon, fight starts again, and Eddie Alvarez gets hit with a knee right under the armpit, and then Dustin Poirier catches him with a left hand, and that rocks Eddie Alvarez, which stumbles him back against the cage. It's the beginning of the end. Poirier starts tripling up his left hand, throwing a couple rights. He threw a couple high kicks that he missed, but he finished the fight with just a vicious forearm right to the side of the head that dropped Eddie Alvarez. Alvarez didn't go out, but you could tell that he really wasn't there and he didn't want any more of the fight. It's interesting to see that as the finish after Eddie Alvarez said Poirier had looked for a way out of the first fight and he had given up. So it's interesting to see Eddie Alvarez kind of crumble against the cage and Dustin Poirier come out victorious. Great fight by Dustin Poirier. I really hope that he does get his title shot. He's been in the UFC a long time. He's beaten a lot of really quality guys. So it'll be interesting to see him go against somebody like Khabib Nurmagomedov. Be really interested to see that fight. He's very good at getting back to his feet, and he's very strong for 155. So we'll see what happens for Dustin Poirier. Back to the drawing board for the uncrowned king, Eddie Alvarez. And can't wait for the next pay-per-view. Thanks for watching, guys. I will talk to you soon.